Welcome, I'm Ernabel Demillo. To kick off the holiday season, we're at the American Museum of Natural History in front of the Origami Tree. For the past 30 years, visitors from all over the world come to view the thousands of origami models adorning this spectacular tree. You'll never find the same one since they change the theme of the tree each year. So who are the creators behind this Christmas spectacular? I recently went behind the scenes with the designers of Origami USA. Fold, flip, crease, and tuck. These are simple origami steps that originated in 17th century Japan, but is carried over into popular art here at Origami USA, a nonprofit dedicated to paper folding. Here, volunteers are creating thousands of models for the annual Origami Christmas tree at the American Museum of Natural History. So what does it take to create one of the most popular New York holiday attractions, second to the Rockefeller Christmas tree? Designer Roz Joyce knows firsthand. She's the brainchild behind the tree and has been folding for 42 years.
Oh, this is definitely a labor of love because it takes so long. When we're dismantling the tree in January, we've already checked to find out what exhibitions are going to be going on in the museum, what's going to change, what will be new, and we start plotting and planning as we're putting things away. Many of them will start folding May or June. We've gotten some models from Italy, we've gotten some from France, from Colombia, Brazil.
The museum presents a different theme each year, and Roz has a tall order to recreate all the characters from the new film, A Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb.
I made a caveman because I noticed on the trailer for the movie that there's a caveman running back and forth, so I got him, club and all, put hair on him. He's a little humanoid.
Designer Talo Kawasaki spent nearly 100 hours on one 3D model honoring Robin Williams, who passed away this year.
With Robin Williams passing, felt like an extra effort would be good for this year's tree.
Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States of America.
I have no idea what that means.
When I'm working on a model such as Theodore Roosevelt, it's a composite model with many different pieces, and I have to make them in different sizes to figure out what size will be suitable for each one.
In addition to the lovable characters like Dexter the monkey and T-Rex, you'll also see plenty of original ornaments created by children who have quite the imagination.
Some of the kids that are folding these days outfold us, the adults, and we're always amazed by that.
There's no required age range. If it's a young person who likes to fold, that's all we need.
As one tree gets unveiled, another one is already in the works. So what's in store for the museum's tree next year?
Well, I've heard things about it being sort of an extreme theme this year. So we're checking into it a little bit.
Terracotta Daughters is touring the world and it's causing quite a sensation. I'm Paul Lin. This army of girls, 100+ Terracotta Warriors, created by Prune Nourry. She's the French-born and Brooklyn-based artist, and she's also working on a feature-length documentary.
Walking among these life-size sculptures, you can't help but feel the same gravity and formality found in the male soldiers from which they draw inspiration, the Terracotta Army of Xi'an.
兵马俑是世界8大奇景，这是中国的国宝。
兵马俑他们实际上就是军队。
Instantly recognizable as a symbol of China, these soldiers date back 2,200 years. Thousands guard the tomb of Emperor Qin, protecting in the afterlife the ruler of China's first imperial dynasty. Today, Prune Nourry has a new army, this time no men, all girls. Through both sculpture and film, she highlights an imbalance in China brought on by gender selection. parents' preference for boys resulting in abortions and abandonment of girls. Prune needed a symbol strong enough to convey that.
Of course, the Terracotta Soldiers Army is a very strong symbol, both in China and around the world. And it's an army of men. So when you want to talk about missing daughters, it makes sense, to mix both of them to realize an army of missing daughters.
Prune's documentary sheds more light on this controversial selection process.
在中国，我们实行的是一个相对比较严格的计划生育的政策，所以它就更加使得人们容易去提。但是呢，我们一直认为说，计划生育政策它并不是一个根本性的原因，它的根本性原因还是我们的这个文化问题。
To begin her project, Prune worked with a non-governmental organization that cares for orphans in China. They selected 8 young girls to be her models.
They accepted to be part of it, and I took them in pictures, front, side, back, because I knew I would have to sculpt them back in the factory. And so I went back to the workshop and I started to sculpt the first one, the girl there, which her name is Hao Ping. So you have Hao Ping, you have Pan, Huiyun, Yindi, Yue, Huixia, Liju, and Jianwei.
Prune made sure to preserve each girl's individuality, how they did their hair, how they held their hands, the bows in their shoes.
For a sculptor, it's always very intimate, of course, because it's like you're sculpting even more when you're making a portrait or someone that has like any type of human lines. There is something very intimate, which is close from the myth of Pygmalion, when you really want your sculpture at some point to be alive. And I would say that this is the moment where you know that the sculpture is finished, is when it's not you anymore looking at it, it's the sculptures looking at you.
So the girls, when they saw these, these girls are what, 8, 9, 10 years old, right?
They are between 10 and 13.
10 and 13. How did they react to their own images in the sculpture form?
Some of them directly recognize themselves. Some others, they were more like, oh, it's not me, it's made of mud, it's strange. So it was a mix between some that directly were pointing at themselves and some others that were like a bit, I would say, afraid or staying in the back and finally had to appropriate their sculpture by touching it and sculpting their own face to recognize it.
To get funding to create a whole army and to help the girls she met, Prune found buyers for her first Terracotta Daughters.
The army was financed by the selling of the 8 originals to 8 different collectors. And when one collector was buying one sculpture, he was financing 1/8 of the whole project and 3 years of education of the girls it represents.
Chinese craftsmen from Xi'an, the home of the Terracotta Army, made the other 100 sculptures. These craftsmen usually make copies of the famous soldiers. Now they had a different assignment. Their work would be representing the missing part of China's population.
然后你的军队你不可能出现这些小女孩嘛。
Prune wanted to make sure all 108 girls were distinct, no repetition. Eventually she found one craftsman who could finish the sculptures with individualized faces. He was Wen Xianfang. He took his job very seriously and personally.
So this one is a portrait that the craftsman made of his own daughter, who is about 10 years old, and he had never made any sculpture before that. He was making mold and cast, but no sculptures really.
After about 2 months of concentrated effort, modeling his daughter and her classmates at school, he had done it, making the 108 Terracotta Daughters unique. They first were exhibited in Shanghai in 2013, destined to be buried right afterwards. Think of the original Qin Dynasty Terracotta Army. But after a strong reception in Shanghai, Prune had second thoughts.
Then suddenly I decided, this crazy idea stick to my mind to let the girls see the world before to bury them. And so I had to find another way to financing them. And I wanted to stay independent, don't work with brands or any sponsorship. So I decided to make bronze out of my sculptures and to sell them to collectors again.
Once the bronzes sold, Terracotta Daughters was on its way to a world tour, stopping in Paris, exhibiting in Zurich and Mexico, and of course making a stop in New York at the China Institute's downtown space, co-presented with the Alliance Française. In 2015, after touring the world, Terracotta Daughters returns to China, where the sculptures will be buried until 2030. There's a reason why Prune chose that date. It has to do with the imbalance expected to come from gender selection.
2030, it's a key date, especially for the sociologists I worked with, because they say that this is the peak where you will have the most men searching for brides and not finding any.
With a story with as many parts as Terracotta Daughters, you can bet it will make an intriguing documentary. Currently at 21 minutes, the feature film will eventually be almost an hour long, documenting the project and the process.
A documentary like this is also a way to mix and explain how like a sociological issue can, mix with an art project, can mix with girls in the countryside, can mix with craftsmen talent and China. So it's like a way, also a tool to express how all these very different things at some point meet together to make an art project.
Look for Terracotta Daughters, the documentary, to hit the big screen in 2016 in New York and other cities around the world. I'm Paul Lin for Asian American Life.
Caring for aging parents, it's something that most adult children worry about. For Asian Americans, there are additional cultural factors that can add comfort and challenges. Morning in the Kang Smithson household starts with a healthy dose of homemade carrot and celery juice and soybean porridge made by Grandma for her grandson Aaron and daughter Susan.
Aaron, breakfast.
She has the wake-up duty. She makes sure we all tell her what time we need to get up. She cooks for everybody. Everybody gets their own meal.
3 generations live together in this Upper West Side home, an arrangement that started 6 years ago, soon after the grandmother, Chung-Hae Kim, was widowed.
When my father passed away after the service, I just asked my mom if she wanted to come and live with us. And I didn't see any other option. And I mean, as a grown-up woman who has lived away from home since I left high school, I just didn't know how I would adjust to that. There was just no question about it. It was the only logical thing to do.
When I stay alone, nothing to do. 이건 아니다 하고서 가방을 메고서 순의 집으로 왔죠. 순의 집에 오니까 일이 많더라고요.
It's an arrangement that's worked well for this family. Susan Kang had been raising her 2 kids on her own for many years, having lost her husband to cancer when the children were toddlers. She says her mother is the best help she could ask for, always making sure the apartment is tidy, the laundry folded, dinner is on the table, and that someone is there when the kids get home from school.
My grandma's always home all day, so she's usually the first one to greet me when I come home. And so I walk in the door and she's always there.
학교에 갔다 오면은 그 기다리는 그 재미가 에런이 학교 갔다 오면은 배고프냐고 말이야. 옷 다 정리해주고 말이야. 그렇게 하면은 에런이 무척 좋아해요. 아버지도 없이 엄마는 일하고 집에 아무도 없으니까 그래도 할머니한테 오는 것이 그렇게 참 좋더라고요, 제가 에런이.
But what happens when grandma is not the caregiver but the one who must be cared for? Traditionally, this responsibility falls on the eldest child. Families view filial piety and respect for one's elders as the highest virtue stemming from Confucianism. But for many Asian Americans, balancing traditional cultural values with modern-day realities can lead to family tensions and conflicts.
Have a good day.
My personal experience with caregiving started back in 2006 when my mom, during our family reunion, our last family reunion, told us that she was dying of cancer, stomach cancer.
Retired U.S. Major General Antonio Taguba lost his mother to cancer in 2008. His elderly father suffered from dementia and needed round-the-clock care. It was a family crisis for him and his siblings, who were scattered across the United States between Hawaii and Virginia and found themselves completely unprepared.
We had a reaction, but we did not have a plan. And consequently, that created a lot of tension. So we pride ourselves in the Asian community being close-knit, but we were also separated, and my parents were also closed-mouthed. They were not giving us the details about their finances or their health, the state of their health.
That's why General Taguba is devoting his time to being a community ambassador for AARP, an organization focused on addressing the concerns of people over the age of 50. He recently spoke at a community forum in New York City that brought together Filipino Americans to discuss caregiving issues and resources that are available to diverse communities.
AARP had asked me to do this, not only to share my story, but to raise awareness and for our audience to share their stories about the demands and the consequences if you don't have a plan.
Having a plan is critical. As AARP reports, the number of Asian seniors in the New York City area grew by 64% between 2000 and 2010.
For some children of aging parents, communications and logistics can be complicated by distance, especially when mom lives on the other side of the globe.
We all are struggling right now. My mom have heart condition.
Leo Duran works 2 jobs to send money home to his ailing mother in the Philippines. He communicates with her by telephone and Skype, but says it's a daily struggle, emotionally and financially.
It becomes very costly when you have to do it every night. You have to call the doctor just to see how your mother's doing or how my mom is doing. It's just breaking my heart when the doctor says she needs this and I can't be there to support her. It's just breaking my heart, but also I'm glad that I'm here just to be able to produce and to give and send the money.
Hi, Aaron. I made the jacket.
I like that one.
You like it?
Aaron and his mom, Susan, consider themselves fortunate to have such a vibrant and energetic 84-year-old living with them under the same roof.
She puts on all different kinds of outfits about like 3 hours before church starts is when it really begins. And then she puts on an outfit, will come to my room, check herself out in the mirror, then ask me if I like it. And then even if I say, you know, I do like it, she'll go back and put on another one and ask me if I like that one, and that will go on for about half an hour. And that happens every Sunday, so she loves looking good.
And when the day comes that Grandma will be the one needing care, not giving it, her daughter Susan says the choice is clear.
I'm gonna have to care for her because Korean children don't generally buy into the idea of sending their parents to nursing homes, so it'll have to be, even if I bring in somebody to help, we're gonna have to do it. I just accept it. She did the same thing for my father. She helped take care of my children, and so you just make compromises elsewhere, but when you buy into it as if there was no choice, but just the right thing to do, then I think that a lot of the conflict is lessened.
Susan's mother may be 84 years old, but she's going strong. And she says she has a sister who just celebrated her 100th birthday this year. So both mother and daughter are looking forward to taking care of each other for many years to come. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
Asian roles on Broadway have come a long way since Miss Saigon. Today, Asian Americans are being cast in more meaningful roles. I recently met with some of the cast members of Here Lies Love to talk about some of these changes.
I'm just a young girl from Leyte.
Here Lies Love is the critically acclaimed pop opera about former Philippine First Lady Imelda Marcos. For actress J.G. Macapugai, the show's run has meant steady work and now the lead.
Oh, it's such a thrill. The reason why it's even more thrilling is I came up from the ensemble as a swing, and as a swing I had to learn 6 tracks. And to come up from that position to take over the lead role in a show, it doesn't happen very often.
In fact, the show, by David Byrne and Fatboy Slim, is a Filipino story with Filipinos in the starring roles. Jose Lana as Ferdinand Marcos, Conrad Ricamora as Benigno Aquino, and of course, J.G. as Imelda.
I've played Vietnamese, I've played Thai, I've played Native American, but to play a Filipino in a huge production, this is the first time.
This is the show's second successful run at the Public Theater, but it will close in January when it tours the globe. It recently opened in London. Meanwhile, its New York-based Asian American cast may find it easier to stay right here and get work on the Great White Way. It seems Asian American actors are suddenly in demand from Broadway to off-Broadway. Ken Watanabe will step into the lead role of The King and I. The show with a large Asian cast will open next spring at the Lincoln Center Theater. And the Tony Award-winning Miss Saigon is also expected back in 2015. There are also several off-Broadway shows that open this fall, with Asian casts including the Pan-Asian Repertory's new production of Film Chinois. Is it just a trend that we're seeing, or do you really think, too, that we're going to see more Asians being cast in shows?
Oh, I definitely think there is an opening up of acceptance that Asian Americans can portray not only Asian American roles or Asian roles, but non-Asian roles.
Tisa Chang founded Pan-Asian Rep in 1997. We interviewed her at Chez Josephine, right next to Theater Row, where they're getting ready to put on their new show. The theater company continues to be a place for Asian actors, directors, and writers to find what she calls meaningful professional opportunities.
The mission is to break stereotype and dignify our appearances and greater opportunities in meaningful roles, lead roles, Clytemnestra, Blanche Dubois, the Empress of China. We are very important, recognized as a pioneer, but very important as connective tissue to providing the pathways, the platforms for actors and playwrights to go to the next level.
Hollywood stars Lucy Liu and Daniel Dae Kim both got their start there. And J.G. made her Imelda debut with Pan-Asian Rep's production of Imelda the Musical. For many young Asian actresses like J.G., who moved to New York 10 years ago, it was seeing an Asian on Broadway that inspired her to pursue an acting career on Broadway. For J.G., it was Lea Salonga.
I just never really thought that you could have a career, doing theater, and the truth is, it became more real when I saw Lea Salonga in Miss Saigon. And this is a story that so many Filipina actresses will tell you, that they saw Lea Salonga get the Tony Award for this incredible musical. I wanted to do anything that I could to be in Miss Saigon and make a career out of it.
And the numbers do indeed show more Asians auditioning. The advocacy group, Asian American Performers Action Coalition, just released study found that Asian American actors working in theater went up 2% this past season to 5%, a 7-year high. But the group points out that this is largely thanks to nonprofit theater companies like the Public's production of Here Lies Love and the signature theaters plays by David Henry Wong, including the recent hit Kung Fu, the story of Bruce Lee. Younger Asian American playwrights are also producing and writing plays for smaller theaters with Asians in starring roles, like Carla Ching's Fast Company, a comedy about a family of grifters. But the AAPAC also noted that on Broadway, Asian representation actually dropped to 2% of all available roles. But that number will most likely change with Miss Saigon and The King and I. Also, we're seeing more Asians being cast in non-Asian specific roles, like Anne Harada's hilarious turn as one of Cinderella's stepsisters. Theater veteran Jose Lana, who made his debut in the 1996 revival of The King and I, agrees that more doors are opening for Asian American actors.
Even in the 19 years that I've been working on Broadway, it's shifted, you know, and I think a lot of it has to do with there are more and more Asian Americans who are going into the arts because the second generation is now becoming a much bigger part of society.
Lana himself has played a non-Asian leading role. After The King and I's run, Lana was cast in the 90s revival of On the Town, in the role made famous by Gene Kelly. Today, while playing the infamous Ferdinand Marcos, he also mentors young actors and tells them to be prepared to play all roles.
I say to young Asian American actors, wannabe actors, I think embrace who you are, but at the same time, don't limit yourself to just that. I teach a lot of theater camps and I tell the young kids, don't think you can't play curly in Oklahoma, but you better learn all the King and I parts so that when they do come around, you get to play those parts and not somebody else.
For Asian actors like Lana, blind casting has boosted their careers, but it shows like Here Lies Love that has a special meaning for its Filipino cast.
The important part about the show for me from a very personal level is that I think people are seeing Here Lies Love who knew nothing about Filipino history, both Filipinos and Americans alike. And when they leave, they're inspired to go Google, you know, people power or Google what actually happened before they found the shoes.
And they hope the future of Broadway and theater will mean more shows just like this. Up next, we'll talk to my colleagues about some of the stories they're covering.
To make the Terracotta Daughters sculptures, the artist had to work with a team of craftsmen from China, from Xi'an, where the original Terracotta Army was unearthed. And they made about 100 different sculptures. One craftsman also helped to personalize all the sculptures, so they were all individuals, because as you know, every girl has a personality and is different. So, you know, she wanted to make sure that came through.
So I have to say this story really resonated for me personally because my own parents are getting older and they live in Korea. And so I think as Asian Americans, we have these sort of cultural values that we grew up in about taking care of our elders. And at the same time, you know, this kind of clashes with some of the modern day realities that we face.
You know, it's interesting, we're talking about tradition, and for a lot of Asian Americans, especially young Asian Americans, pursuing a career in acting wasn't something a lot of parents actually encouraged. In fact, they discouraged it. Little known secret about me, I always wanted to be a Broadway actress, but I didn't have a lot of role models. And so working on this story, I was really amazed at how many young Asian Americans are now pursuing careers on Broadway, and they're doing so well that so many of them now are being cast on Broadway. It's just so nice to see that. You know, it makes me wish that I was 20 years younger.
I wish that anyway.
Thanks for joining us. The Origami Holiday Tree will be on display here at the museum until January 11th. Be sure to stop by. I'm Ernabel Demillo. We'll see you next time on Asian American Life.